Now, for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. Yeah, who isn't talking about the Naira redesign announcement? I just heard the points that you both made with respect to the decision by the central bank to phase out those notes by the end of January next year. And your points were well taken, but let's look at some of the concerns that were raised by the central bank. So the high circulation volume outside bank vaults of currency, right? Counterfeiting of the currency, short supply of clean notes, prevalence of currency mutilation. While your points are well made with respect to the disruption side of things, the amount of time, the CBN is within the law with about 3 months notice with respect to recalling notes. So the only issue, I guess, is like you think of market women that might be hesitant to accepting present Naira notes, knowing that they might have issues changing them. Then you've also got, those concerns are well placed. However, this really is to checkmate electioneering. That's where it is. Now, you referred a few minutes ago were saying that a lot of these politicians stash their money in foreign exchange, in cash. But if you look at the amount of money that is in circulation, we saw that the central bank already said that more than 80% of currency in circulation is outside bank vaults, and that is in Naira. So you have to think about the unprecedented level of vote buying that is going to be taking place between now and when the elections take place. And on the other, with respect to the, I think you mentioned currency speculators as well. What is the guarantee that BDCs are going to want to accept the current notes right now for FX? So it's on that note, excuse the pun. I'm not quite convinced that is going to be the case. Another thing, electronic payments. If you look at I think according to NIBS, the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, I think we had, there it is, 204 trillion Naira e-payments so far this year, well, between January and July. So that's up 40% versus 2021. That number is going to grow as well. So if you think about the number, there's going to be more of a reliance on electronic payments, financial inclusion, and also think about even with changing of FX. A lot of people change FX without, making demand for FX. They do it electronically. So some folks transfer Naira to their BDCs, and then the BDCs who are holding dollar cash now deposit it in there. So if you think about
a lot of folks in the urban centers.
Well, yeah, in the urban centers. Okay, so think about it like this. Let's play this. Let's play it out. This announcement has now been made. You want to go to a BDC and take raw cash and give it to them and say, hey, listen, I want to buy. There's going to be hesitation. They might even push you to do it electronically and transfer it, right? So because of the amount of the issues with going forward and trying to change that. And then another thing that needs to be brought up here is that the central bank, again, I think you mentioned inflationary concerns. This is a one-for-one. They are going to be taking what is in circulation and swapping it with the new notes, which means they have a handle on the amount of supply of those new notes. So if they choose, they could actually control how much of those new notes are actually given out. So you've got to think about the people who have wads of cash just in septic tanks or wherever they are hidden, who now have to scramble to get those wads of cash changed for these new notes. And now this is where anti-money laundering comes in. The hope here is that the banks and the EFCC, which by the way, there was a notice put out from the EFCC congratulating the central bank on this move, in that now they can check money laundering, campaign financing, terrorist financing, and so on and so forth. But the key thing is, will the banks do their job? Will they alert the authorities if somebody comes in with a massive? Why would you doubt that? I mean, but the central bank is the regulator.
The central bank is the regulator.
The central bank is in control of those.
But the truth is, there have still been ways at which there have been cracks in the system.
Well, that's what this is addressing.
And when you look at it critically, I repeat, which I very much doubt. But you see, I'll sit back and watch. We'll see the implementation, how it goes in the next coming days. We'll see the variations.
Yeah.
We'll look at the inflation numbers.
You keep bringing up inflation again.
Yeah. So we'll look at how they put this money in circulation, how it goes into the markets. We'll see how it sips through. And we take a post-mortem of this. You see, all of this we're just doing, speculating based on what we have on ground. But let's see how it goes. You'll see.
They tend to notice this.
And there are many arguments to it.
The suspicion that there is nothing you introduce in Nigeria. Even the best of systems that work in other parts of the world do not work here. Nigerians will make the effort to bypass the system.
How will you do that?
Just wait, Rotu.
Which is why.
Let's talk about it practically. How?
Which is why it is important that the EFCC and the Financial Intelligence Unit have both put people on notice.
The NFIU,
Two, the banks. You can also say that the CBN as a regulator, we also have to monitor the banks more closely because much of the money laundering that goes on within the system or infractions within the financial system are promoted by the banks themselves. Okay?
The money laundering is promoted by the banks themselves?
There is collusion by persons within the banks who help people.
Okay.
How is it that we don't have new notes? When last did you get new notes from the banks?
But event centers have new notes. When you go to event centers.
The event centers.
I'm not finished.
Okay, go ahead. A healthy allegation.
I'm just talking about people bypassing the system.
Within the banks, okay.
The third point that we can also note is that on election day, at that polling booth, people don't go there distributing dollars because the ordinary man that wants to vote, right? It's not dollars you will use to induce the person.
It's
Naira because it's a very small amount.
Right.
How much dollar are you going to give to people? So even if you have access to dollar, how many people are you going to give on election day? It's not like party primaries. The dynamics is different.
Right, that's what is being checkmated now. It's the fact that the Naira is the Naira circular.
I'm saying that what they have done in relation to the general elections next year is a master stroke.
Okay, so we're in agreement.
That is
all right, fine.
And that's why I've sounded very supportive of it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we're in agreement. So
yes, it relates to vote buying and all of that, but I'm still saying.
What's your concern, Rufai? Lay it out.
This is my concern.
Yes.
People are going to crack the system.
How? How are you going to crack the system?
I have told you how they're going to crack the system. I have told you it's these same banks you think will be buffers, that'll make the collusion. I have told you, hang on a minute, hang on a minute.
Okay.
Politicians will still find their way out of this system. Any politician that wants his salt will still get his Naira for vote buying on election day. If they don't do that, then they're not worth their salt. And Rotus, you and I will be, I am happy about that. Don't get me wrong, please. I think a lot of people get me wrong. I'm happy about what the CBN has done. Brings a lot of sanity into the system. Good to mop up cash. If for anything, I'm excited. Those bandits, kidnappers that have a lot of cash in here, you are bringing it out of the system. But one thing we should never also forget is that there is a very structured, informal system of the way cash moves across the African continent, even through BDCs. You see, the trillions of Naira you even talk about are the ones you still see in the circulation. What about the ones that were carried, hang on a minute, out of these countries through channels that you will never get to know about? So, those are the points I'm trying to make. But you see, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. We'll practicalize this. We'll see this out. And let me tell you something. I'm a very objective person. I'm not somebody that'll come. If my assertions are wrong on this, I will be the first to come back on the air and tell you, yes, I'm wrong. And I accept the learning. But on this, based on the antecedents of how I know things work in this country, we will see the effect. And the postulation I made, that people will try to convert the money into buying of dollars.
No, wait. So
hang on a minute. Hang on a minute.
Convert it with the new notes?
Let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
They will still have a rush at the dollar. You and I will see. Hang on a minute, Rotus. Let me make
go ahead.
You and I will see the effect on the rate of the dollar in the coming days. And if it's not so, I will come back here and say I was wrong. I'm somebody that I'm so objective enough. I'm proud to say I'm wrong when I'm wrong. I say it proudly.
All right.
that I could have gotten the argument better.
Fine.
But it's just all laid out on the table.
Okay, so the thing again, this point of the rush of the dollar with which notes? Are you talking about rush of the dollar with the present notes that we have now? Again, with the BDCs, and this is the open question. If you are a BDC that has heard this notification from the central bank, are you incentivized to now start collecting present notes in the system to now convert to the new notes? What kind of attention does that bring to you? So that, I think, disincentivizes BDCs to collect. So the three of us are here assuming that we was, oh my goodness, let's now go carry this cash and go and throw it at DVCs. And I've also mentioned that look at our e-payments, electronic payments growth. A lot of these transactions, when it comes to changing Naira for FX, happen electronically. A lot of people transfer Naira. So again, the central bank is trying to, and it's a shame we're using FX as an example, but in general, this is also supposed to increase electronic payments to where it's like, okay, let's avoid the headache of having to go to a physical bank, in order to move my money, and do it more electronically. So this argument of this rush for dollars, again, I don't think that a BDC I think a BDC is disincentivized at this point before the deadline to want to accept that cash. And now on the flip side, I'm not sure who mentioned market women earlier. For market women, traders, traders, there's also that flip side to where they might also be disincentivized to want to accept cash, which might affect aggregate demand. Who knows? We'll have to see. So there'll be some disruption. But the overarching cause, the overarching issue here with what the CBN is trying to do, that I think, as we're all in agreement, should be checkmated ahead of this very, very vital election.
Time will tell.
We'll see.
Let's wait for it. Let's see it.
Thank you, Rotus.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. A mixed, as usual, really, as far as Asia Pacific is concerned. What they're doing there is digesting some of the economic data. But I've got some rather interesting stuff about tech stocks, basically. The Hang Seng jumped more than 3% yesterday and then ended up about 1.75%. But boosted by tech stocks. I'll come on to why I think that's rather strange in a second. We've had more positive news from Australia as well. The Nikkei slightly lower, and the Chinese stock exchange slightly lower as well. South Korea's third quarter GDP grew 0.3%. That's the slowest growth that they've had since the third quarter of 2021. I'm going to take you to Singapore next. Mortgage costs are rising there. Quite extraordinary, this. Some buyers are shrugging off the higher rates. Guess why? Because they don't have mortgages. There's an enormous amount of strong rental demand and also very, very wealthy people moving to Singapore right now. And these people do not apparently need to rely on borrowing to fund their new home buying. Samsung Electronics, the world's leader in microchips, it registered some falls in its earnings, but it thinks, it's very much banking on this, that demand for microchips will start to increase through 2023 and then really be measurable at the end of 2023, because despite it says what's happening in the rest of the world, they think the demand for computers and new data centers will require more memory. I'm going to take you to the International Energy Agency. The world, according to them, the world faces its first truly global energy crisis. Russia's invasion of Ukraine will have long-lasting effects, it says, on energy supply and markets. The IEA says it added that unaffordable energy bills remain a huge problem. We were talking about this, weren't we, yesterday, taking on board the fact that the World Bank had said similar kinds of thing. But it's also seeing this crisis as being a real turning point, speeding up the world's transition to green energy. It forecasts that fossil fuel demand will peak towards the end of the decade, i.e. 2030, and the world is approaching a pivotal moment, and the golden age of gas, it says, is coming to an end. Let me take you to the United States now, and more on tech stocks there. Meta shares, in particularly, cratered after disappointing tech earnings. That's the Facebook parent company, plummeted nearly 20%. ServiceNow shares, though, up about 10%. So it's a very mixed picture from that. But the big names are actually showing all this kind of recessionary-linked lack of appetite for online advertising and all the rest of it are showing the kind of strain, really, and it's very much as if investors are looking very closely at these kind of results. And Jay Powell is facing political pressure as well now from various members of the Fed board because they're worried about the economy, worried about the Fed's trajectory towards raising interest rates. Meta CEO, let's keep going with that. We lose even more money building the metaverse, and Mark Zuckerberg apparently, and I quote, sounded flabbergasted at times when he was talking to analysts yesterday. And I think what he's saying is, please be patient with us. Things will change. This is a big turning point for Meta and Facebook. He's absolutely right there, isn't he? I mean, we've been observing how these things are changing, particularly as far as regulation is concerned, over the past few months and so on. So he's not wrong. I'm going to take you now to the European Union and to Germany, which is rapidly rethinking the value of China as an export market. At the moment, it's worth about 100 billion euros to the German economy, but with geopolitical tensions, zero COVID policy, domestic competition, and with increasing preference that China is showing towards buying local. It's not so much being seen as an expansionary area, but a lot of companies, particularly small ones, and these are little family-sized companies, are things that have been going at a well-known, the Mittelstand companies in Germany, been well-known for being the absolute basis of their economic growth. A lot of those are not looking at China as being an expansionary market, but as they put it, trying to limit the damage that it's causing. To the UK, that's long-awaited tax and spending plan on October the 31st, the one that has its homework marked, as it were, by the Office of Budget Responsibility, is now being postponed until November the 17th. The markets are very suspicious about that. They're not that worried. I am suspicious about it because I think that some of the spending plans are actually have been reversed quite quickly. The new Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has done that, and he's saying that moving it to November the 17th allows more scrutiny. I mean, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? You have a new Prime Minister whose background is the Treasury, the background is business. You bet he wants to make sure that that those calculations are absolutely fine. And absolutely make no mistake about that. We're also seeing that yesterday the Prime Minister reinstated the ban on fracking in this country. It'd been something which the Liz Truss administration, for that very short time, actually pushed to one side and said, yes, fracking will continue because we want to make the UK more independent. He's actually reinstated that ban on fracking until it's been proved safe, and has also refused to commit to the triple lock on pensions, i.e. that pensioners have their pensions updated for the highest measure of inflation each year. And finally, I want to turn your attention to oil, because Western officials are working as we speak on finalising the plans for the Russia oil price cap. Shell, though, and the rest of them, Shell is talking about an extraordinary, it's made 20 to 25 billions of pounds this year, on dollars rather, on windfall profits. So it's just twice as much as it did last year. And oil and gas companies stand to make about 2 trillion because of surging prices. So I'm pretty sure there will be further calls for windfall taxes on those companies, whether or not you think windfall taxes actually work or not. That is the global view.
All right, so let's see how it pans out with the new scheme of things in the UK as we speak today. I'd like to ask once again, where are we? The announcement of the new budget pretty much has been pushed to the 17th of November. Is it to show that Jeremy Hunt isn't ready for this yet? Or the Rishi government is not ready? no pun intended, about the ready for Rishi pun. Is that the case? What are we seeing with the OBR? I'd like to, interrogate that even further.
I mean, the OBR needs to be absolutely the most responsible it's ever been, the Office for Budget Responsibility. I mean, you could pick it to pieces because it's just another body, but it has meant something over the past few years. It was set up in the early stages of the Tory government by George Osborne when he was Chancellor then. I am, like you, wondering about why this has been postponed. Was Jeremy Hunt too fast with some of his tax cuts? I think that Sunak is probably wanting to have a little time to digest this, because make no mistake about it, this is absolute make or break. This had better please, it's clearly not going to please people whose spending is seen to be cut, and there will be tax rises and there will be spending cuts throughout the economy, particularly in places. And there is the small question, which is we don't have time to discuss right now, and I don't really have the knowledge to discuss it, but the NHS, I can tell you, the National Health Service, giving out treatment free on demand, is something which does need to be looked at, because that's a huge drain on the economy. Whether he'll be looking at that as well, I suspect he probably will. So all these moving parts, I suspect, were not ready not ready to be set before the public, before the media, before the commentators, before the Office of Budget Responsibility, and the markets themselves, of course, much by Monday. And I see this postponement as being a chance to make sure that this time it is absolutely correct. And you bet that it will be sold and it will be supervised as no other budget has been before, because it absolutely is a turning point in this country's fortunes. I think that's the main reason. It's too important to rush, and that's why they're not rushing it. Whether that means there's stuff in there that people won't like, I suspect there probably is.
Okay, let's talk about gas in Europe. At some point on this program, we were saying, by winter, the Eurozone countries are going to have serious problems with gas. But now we're told, you brought this up yesterday, that in the EU, there's now an oversupply of gas. Many of those countries haven't been able to get gas from the US and also from Qatar, and the storage facilities are up to about 94% full, which is even most unusual. But is it sustainable? Would they be able to still have this level of negative prices by next winter? Or this is, just, as a result of the weather? And then, of course, now that we have Russian gas down to 9% from 40%, is this, like some, end for the dominance of Russia? That's one. The second one, as for Meta, well, isn't it foreseeable? The global economy is shrinking. Advertising companies are keeping, their budget low, and there is this general crisis. But could it also be that the problem with Meta and Facebook is the competition that they have, and also perhaps Mark Zuckerberg's business model? He's been talking about this virtual reality for more than a year that has not yet gone, off the ground. And now there are speculations that jobs may be cut.
Okay, let's talk about Meta first. I'm not of the generation that feels the need for virtual reality, and and as you read things about what's being planned, and it's the way it's being directed towards people who are very much younger than both of us, Doctor, if I may say so, and you know what I'm talking about, the younger, the Generation X and all the rest of it. Whether they actually want this or not is very difficult. I don't think Zuckerberg has quite understood that people are not necessarily clamoring for virtual reality. So that's number one. Number two, yes, absolutely competition, no question about that. And number three, I think absolutely as well the regulation that these books, what was seen as a happy clappy sort of friendly social media, keep in touch with, this is what I've been doing today kind of website, into something which is much more serious than that, given its size and so on. I think that the likes of Facebook and all this kind of social contact stuff is coming under huge regulation, and not just regulation, but also taxation as well. And the model of clearly online advertising is not working at the moment. We are going to hear later today from WPP, which used to be run by Martin Sorrell, no longer, but it is the world's largest advertising agency, and I'm sure they will have a lot to say about what they think about digital. But it's certainly the fall in the share price has certainly made the headlines over here and on the national news over here, which normally doesn't concern itself with American companies. Gas. Okay, I was talking to gas analysts yesterday, and the situation is this. There is a surplus, no question, floating around at the moment. The question is that the people who own that gas are not really wanting it to go to market until the price starts to go up, and the price starts to go up in the winter. Now, is it an issue of storage space? Well, that is being rebuilt. What I'm saying to you is the price is bound to rise. There's no question about that. So the fact that these ships are floating around, which we have taken notice of on previous bulletins and programs with you, is fine. They're there, but the companies that own the liquid natural gas are saying to themselves, we're not going to release that until the price goes up, because you've got all this refining which has actually taken place, and that is quite costly. So it's not quite as simple as there is a big amount of supply and that Europe's all right. I think that prices will inevitably rise. That's what the gas analysts are saying right now.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much indeed.